In June 1982, in the heart of London, under a bridge known as Blackfriars, a body was discovered hanging in the early hours of the morning. It did not look like a normal suicide. The man's pockets were filled with bricks. There was cash, carefully placed, and the position of the body raised immediate suspicion. His name was Roberto Calvi, one of the most powerful bankers in Europe, a man so deeply connected to the Catholic Church that he became known as God's banker. At first, authorities ruled it a suicide, a desperate man overwhelmed by financial collapse. But that explanation did not last. Investigators began to notice inconsistencies. Witnesses changed their stories. Evidence did not align, and slowly, a different picture emerged. Years later, Italian courts concluded something chilling. Roberto Calvi had been murdered, but the real question was not just who killed him, it was why. Because as investigators followed the money, they uncovered something far more disturbing: a hidden financial system operating inside one of the most powerful institutions in the world, the Vatican. What started as a banking scandal soon revealed connections to organized crime, secret societies, intelligence agencies, and unexplained deaths. At the center of everything was a little-known institution, the Vatican Bank. To understand this story, we need to go back, not to the scandal, but to the origin of the institution itself. The Vatican Bank, officially known as the Institute for the Works of Religion, was created in 1942. At the height of World War II, the Catholic Church needed a way to manage its global finances. Donations were flowing in from every continent. Funds had to be distributed across missions, charities, and dioceses. It required a centralized system, but the Vatican chose a very specific model. This would not be a public bank. It would not operate like a commercial institution. Its clients would be limited: clergy members, church organizations, and individuals closely connected to the Holy See. But the most important detail was legal. The Vatican is a sovereign state. That means its institutions exist outside traditional financial systems. No external regulator, no central bank supervision, no standard international oversight, only internal governance. At first, this structure made sense. It allowed the church to move money across borders efficiently, especially during times of war and political instability. But over time, this independence created something else: secrecy. For decades, the Vatican Bank operated with minimal transparency. Financial reports were limited, audits were internal, very little information reached the outside world. To many observers, it became a black box. Money entered, money left, but the process in between remained hidden. And as history would later show, this lack of oversight created opportunity. Opportunity for influence, opportunity for manipulation, and eventually, opportunity for corruption. By the 1970s, the Vatican Bank had evolved. It was no longer just a financial tool of the church. It had become part of a much larger and more complex network, one that extended far beyond Vatican walls. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, a powerful financial structure was quietly taking shape in Italy. At its center was Banco Ambrosiano, one of the country's largest private banks, and leading it was Roberto Calvi, a man with connections, not just in finance, but inside the Vatican itself. The Vatican Bank was a major shareholder in Banco Ambrosiano, and through this relationship, Calvi gained something extremely valuable: credibility, trust, and access. But behind the scenes, Calvi was building something far more complex: a network of offshore companies, registered in places like the Bahamas and Panama. These companies existed mostly on paper. They had no real operations, no physical presence, but they were essential to the system because they allowed money to move without clear traceability. Loans were issued to these entities, funds were transferred across borders, and billions of dollars began circulating through this hidden network. Then, everything collapsed. In 1982, Banco Ambrosiano failed. More than $1.3 billion had disappeared. Investigators quickly realized something was wrong. Many of the loans had been issued to companies that did not truly exist. The money was gone. And at the center of the web was the Vatican Bank. The IOR had provided what were known as letters of comfort. These documents reassured investors that the bank was stable, that their money was safe. But at the same time, the Vatican had quietly signed documents denying legal responsibility. When the collapse happened, creditors were left with massive losses. In 1984, the Vatican agreed to pay $244 million, not as an admission of guilt, but as what it called a moral gesture. For many, this raised more questions than answers. Because if there was no responsibility, why pay at all? As the financial investigation expanded, the story became darker, because people connected to the scandal began to die. Roberto Calvi, found hanging under Blackfriars Bridge, his death now considered murder. His secretary, Graziella Coroker, fell from a window just one day earlier. Then came Michel Sindona, a financial advisor with deep ties to both the Vatican and the Mafia. He had been involved in complex financial operations for years. After being convicted of fraud, he died in prison, poisoned, cyanide in his coffee. Investigators began to connect the dots. There were indications of money laundering, possible involvement of the Sicilian Mafia, and connections to a secretive organization known as the P2 Masonic Lodge, a group that included powerful figures from politics, finance, and the military. According to investigators, Calvi may have been killed because he knew too much. He had access to sensitive information that could expose powerful networks and possibly threaten individuals at the highest levels. But many questions remain unanswered. Before the Ambrosiano collapse, there was another event that continues to raise questions. In 1978, Pope John Paul I was elected. His papacy lasted just 33 days. His death was sudden, officially attributed to natural causes. But almost immediately, speculation began. Some believed he had plans to reform the Vatican's financial system, including changes inside the Vatican Bank and the removal of key figures associated with it. One of those figures was Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, the head of the IOR at the time. There is no definitive evidence linking the Pope's death to the banking scandal. Historians remain cautious, but the timing and the secrecy surrounding the event have fueled decades of speculation. The Vatican Bank was not operating in isolation. It existed within a broader geopolitical landscape. During the Cold War, the Vatican played a strategic role, particularly in Eastern Europe. According to historical accounts, financial channels linked to the Vatican were used to support anti-communist movements, including Solidarity in Poland. Funds, equipment, and resources were transferred through discrete networks. Some reports suggest cooperation with Western intelligence agencies, including the CIA. At the same time, other allegations emerged that after World War II, Vatican-linked networks helped Nazi officials escape Europe through routes later known as rat lines. These claims remain debated, but they highlight a critical point. The Vatican was not just a religious institution. It was also a political actor, operating quietly but with global reach. For decades, the Vatican Bank remained largely opaque. But in 2012, that began to change. A scandal known as Vata leaks exposed internal documents. These leaks revealed power struggles, financial irregularities, and resistance to reform. The image of the Vatican began to shift. Then in 2013, Pope Francis took office. He initiated a series of reforms. Thousands of suspicious accounts were closed. New compliance systems were introduced. The bank began aligning with international anti-money laundering standards. Transparency increased. But reforming such an institution is a slow process, because the deeper the system, the harder it is to change. Today, the Vatican Bank still exists, more transparent than before, but still surrounded by mystery. Its history is not just about finance. It is about power, secrecy, influence, and the complex relationship between faith and the real world. Because behind the walls of the Vatican, there is not only religion, there is strategy, there is politics, and sometimes there are shadows.